Okay, so welcome back. Please take a seat, because we would want to start on time. Not only for us here in the room, but also for the online crowd, of course. They are waiting also that we continue with much more insights into data science and data science applications. Okay, so let's start our second session. I'm happy to chair the second session where we talk about data science and gaming. Is it a fruitful combination, or maybe it's not needed? So let's see what our speakers will talk about. And we have invited 3 speakers for 2 talks, and then afterwards we will have also a presentation by students, high school students, about their girls in data science projects. So we will talk about that today. So first, without further ado, that we have enough time, I just show you the agenda. So first we will have a talk by Marie Biedermann and Ksenia Harischina from the University of Klagenfurt, and then we will have a talk from Neza Strus from Ljubljana, and then we will have the high school students on stage. So I want to welcome on stage our first 2 speakers. So they are 2 master students from the University of Klagenfurt, Ksenia and Marie, and sorry, there's a thing that should be different, but now we do it that way. Anyhow, I improvise a bit. So first, it's Marie. Marie is a game studies engineering student from the University of Klagenfurt. She's a game jam organizer, so she has a lot of experience in designing games and playing games. And she has a humanities background, so she's not actually a data scientist in her first career, but now she starts going towards engineering and game development. And currently she's playing The Sims 4. And then we have Ksenia. Ksenia is also a game studies engineering student coming from Ukraine, and she's a researcher at the Lakeside Labs in Klagenfurt currently as well. She has a software engineering background, and she organizes events to give accessible education on data science. And currently, she is playing Slay the Spire. So we welcome them both on stage for their talk.
Hi guys. Not gonna lie, that's a lot of people here. Kind of nervous. I just wanted to go to see what comes here. Okay. So I just wanted to present to you and welcome you to our talk about the itch, the bad, and the ugly data. How to incorporate data analytics into the game development process to boost player engagement on each I/O. So first thing, let's go back first. First thing I wanted to ask you, or we wanted to ask you, do you guys know what a video game is? Yeah. Hands up, yeah. Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah. Who has ever played a video game?
Nice. Woo, 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 nice. Okay, who of you knows what indie game development or indie games are? Okay. Okay, Ksenia, I think we can go, our work is done.
Okay.
Okay, thank you guys. No, that was a joke, obviously. So, where are we? Okay, there we are. This is our table of contents. That's what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about I wanted to use that, that's such a cool tool. What is indie game development? We're going to talk about each I/O, researching or existing research on each I/O, what a game jam is, diversity and each I/O, our games. Then one of our games, it's called Monster Match. Then we're going to talk about the analytics of Monster Match. We're going to examine other people's itches, other people's video games on itches. We're going to talk about popular game tags on each, and main tips, takeaways, and possible research directions. That's quite a lot, so I hope we can get through it, honestly. So first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, what is indie game development? I brought a nice quote here for you, which says that indie games do not refer to games created by amateurs, but are broadly defined as games that are consciously created within alternative production and distribution structures outside of the mainstream game companies. So what that basically means is that indie game development is not, there's no affiliation to mainstream companies or big game development companies, aka AAA companies, which they are called most of the time. They are highly interest driven. They want to have a interesting product in the end. And they're highly task-oriented. Most of the time they consist of freelancers, artists, and people who work part-time on game development. Then I wanted to talk about the role of indie game development. Apparently, wait a second, I need my slide. So it's the fastest growing and most influential segments of the video game industry. It dominates even the mobile gaming market. As you might know, I have a phone, you have a phone, even Ksenia has a phone. It accounts for 68% of all the mobile game sessions, which is a lot. The most famous indie game, I'm pretty sure you've all heard of Minecraft. That's not, oh wait, that's not a picture of Minecraft. That's something else, but I'm pretty sure you know what Minecraft is. It's a sandbox, open-ended game, and it was released in 2011, and it was later sold to Microsoft for over $2 billion, which is a lot of dollars.
A lot of dollars.
It's a lot of money. And this is a character of one of my favorite indie games, or one of my favorite games ever. It's Hollow Knight. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was released in 2016 by, I think, 5 Australian people, and yeah, by Team Cherry, also indie game developers. So, nice, right? Isn't that a nice picture, guys? So here we're going to talk about indie as art. So the form of indie game development changes and also transforms games from a commercialized product to forms of free expression and creativity. It's all about creating original products and encouraging new ideas, and less of reusing existing materials and concepts. It promotes alternative values and perspective and autonomy, and it creates, or it transforms the game and game development scene of more into the direction of game as made and into a personalized artwork. So now to the itch. So this is itch.io is basically an online marketplace. It's a website created, developed, released in 2013. And the idea was to have a different approach to platformization of video games. So basically, any one of us can upload a game on itch.io. It's really easy. There are no constraints. You don't need to have any votes, sales, followers, likes. The featured page on itch is also hand-curated by people. So they have in their team, they have people in their team who pick games which they want to have in their featured pages, and they constantly curate them and change up the games. What it also does, you can choose whether you want your content to be free or paid, which is nice, while also always having the ability to donate. So you can always pay more than what the developers, for example, want you to. It grants you access to its analytics tools, which also can show you where the players come from, how many browser plays, downloads you have, or how many players in general played your game. And yeah, it was founded in 2013 by Leif Corcoran. I don't know how to pronounce that name. So there is existing research on itch.io, however, it's not a lot. That's why we thought it's such an interesting topic and an interesting thing to do research on. I found this paper by Werning, and he argues that itch.io provides a bottom-up approach, which means that it prioritizes independent game developers over attracting major game franchises. It prioritizes agency, and it has, as I already mentioned, an alternative take on platformization by making the pay what you want, like the donation, a model of the default. Then what itch.io also does, it's a place where you can share games from developers for developers. Like, we also published games on itch.io. We are both developers, and we also play games on itch.io. You can indicate your game's development, which is super nice for people to see how a game is made, what the stages are in the game development process. You can also show what engine you used, which can in later show what specific tools you used with design choices. People can get more literate in how games are made. And that can result in what Werning mentioned as the empowered ideal user, which is one who may not only buy/sell games, but also eventually make games. Then also I wanted to talk about genre boundaries. That's really cool about itch.io. So what we have here is, because it's a small indie game developmental process, people don't have a lot of resources to create a video game. That's why they have to, first of all, make their games unique and make them very small. Those are not huge games like AAA companies can produce. And therefore, they focus on a small thing in genre-wise, and that's how we get a different experience when it comes to genre. So, and now one of my dearest topics ever, what is a game jam? Does any one of you know what a game jam is? Yay, nice. Okay, game jam is as it is mentioned here, a hackathon-like event where people come together, collaborate, develop, and work together on a game. Usually you don't have to program to make a video game. I also cannot program. There are engines which do that for you, which is really nice. But also you can take on a different role at game jams, right? So you need an artist, you need writers, you obviously need someone who codes maybe, or depending on what engine you use, and you need a producer. And yeah, now over to Ksenia.
Thank you, Marie.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hello. I just wanted to tell us a little story of how we met with Marie. It was also because of a game jam. So our first game jam that happened at our university, we didn't know each other back then, and after it has finished, we were presenting in our class, and Marie said something that caught my attention. She said, I would really love to work with women next time, because we didn't have any women in our teams then, and I immediately reached out to her and said, I would also love to work in a team with women. And in the next game jam, we organized a group of women to make a game together, and we're going to talk about this game also today. Game jams are a big part of itch.io, and itch.io is a very diverse platform for various diverse identities of game developers and game consumers, and you can see that also reflected on the topics of the game jams that are there. And so, for example, game jams like accessibility game jam for LGBTQ+ topics, for sustainability game jam, which encourages diverse games and diverse solutions for games, which is a big part of itch.io. So diversity in itch.io in general. So as opposed to mainstream contemporary video game big companies or AAA games, as they are also known, itch.io does much better with representation and diversity. Also, it is very queer-friendly, it's very women-friendly, and yeah, we think that's great, and that's what we wanted to say. Thank you. So these are some of the games that we made. So this was our first game, Monster Match, which has kind of inspired our talk today, which we will talk about in the next slide.
Yeah, Monster Match is a visual novel, and the topic, genre, tag is actually horror and dating sim, which is a funny combination. Then we have the cozy game Exe is called UI and Chill, which is a parody of a meditative experience. Parody of a cozy game, where you have to work against the user interface to get to the game, and in the end it's just a paywall. It's really funny.
Curse of the Narrator is the next game we made after Monster Match, which is also like an interactive narrative experience, which also has some horror elements, and we made it also. It is all female team. Yep.
And Hüttendaddy is a game we recently made at Hüttenjam at the Durach. It's about a Hüttendaddy. It's a non-VR ski simulative experience, and yeah, it's mostly about Hüttendaddy getting to the Hüttendaddy conference, and there's a nice song we wrote for it.
Okay, please check it out if you have time. So yeah, now we will talk about Monster Match, the game that inspired us to talk about analytics also and itch.io. So this was our first game, and like Marie mentioned, the genre of it is quite unusual. So it's horror and a dating sim. So the topic of the game jam was actually to combine the uncombinable, and this is what we came up with. And surprisingly, the game was quite a hit by the
itch.io community.
By itch.io community.
Yeah.
So and people are playing it every day till this day. And, well, maybe not like a million people per day, but...
It's not a huge amount. Like
Yeah.
on itch.io, for such a small game jam game, which was developed in 48 hours, it has been played by over 4,000 people. And we have like players each day, 1 to 10 people each day.
Yeah, which is quite unusual and unlike other games that we made. So we wanted to know, since itch.io allows us to analyze the analytics and the data of the users and how they interact with our games, we wanted to get to the bottom of why do people play our game. Okay, so as you can see, this is the analytics for our games that itch.io allows everyone to see, every game developer to see on their game. So we can, like Marie said, we have over 4,000 browser plays, and this shows just that people continue on playing it regularly on a daily basis. And what you can also see on the top is we have 333 collections that people saved our game into, and we can see which collections people saved our game to, and that we also wanted to share with you.
Some of those are very interesting, some of them are kind of questionable.
Nope. So these are
interesting ones.
These are just collections. You can see examples. So a lot of just called dating sims. Some say horror, some say visual novels, some say monster games, some say stream games, which probably refers to games for streaming, which is also a big part of the games industry. Yep. So this we also used to for our research, this information.
And then the questionable ones.
That's just some questionable ones.
It's like, should I? I think you should.
If you're in the audience, you should.
Yeah. Yeah, don't judge me for my taste in dating sims. I don't know what's that about. I think Monster Match is a great taste in dating sims, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, you can see the other ones as well. We love being lonely.
Hot lady nights and other such dating sims. Do we have hot lady nights in our game?
No, we
I
don't
think we do.
So. But yeah, that's just something fun for developers also to look into. Yep. So examining other people's itches. So when we had idea for this talk, we thought about analyzing more data about itch.io, and so we reached out to our colleagues who are doing game developers. Marie reached out on Twitter to game developers on itch. We analyzed our own games analytics, and we wanted to come to some sort of conclusion based on the data that we see and correlate it to the engagement that people do on itch.io. So this is just can be like a starting data set that we created, that we possibly want to enlarge in the future and potentially apply some statistical or machine learning approaches on to create possibly predictive models or draw some hidden patterns in the data from it, because that's what data science is about, finding hidden patterns. And we have also prepared some research questions that we want to explore with this in the future, but also just a few slides about our small
data collection.
Data set collection that we gathered. So this is just, we can see that the first part of it's over 20 games, so it's not that much. But
BP means browser plays, and C means collections, and 7 day means 7 day impressions. Whereas we have one game where with Green New Deal Simulator, it has 1 million 7 day impressions, which I have no idea.
Yep.
That's so much.
Yep. So this is kind of our initial data set, and that we just draw our personal conclusions based on, and we created some takeaways from that we wanted to share with you before going further into our research in the future. So first, how to make your game stand out. Here's some tips and takeaways. So have diverse people on your team, that's always important. People with diverse backgrounds, people with diverse cultures, genders, etc. Explore diverse and personal topics. If you don't see yourself represented in a big budget games or other media, it's a chance for you to try it out on itch.io, because this is a place to share your personal story. Pay attention to tags that are most interacted with, which are labels on itch.io, which can be referred to genre or aesthetics about your games or other. So, for example, horror, we figured out that horror and dating sims is a very good way to get your people to interact with your game on itch.io, and that's why Monster Match actually became so popular, because people interact with these tags the most, and it had both of them. Apply create for bundles. So bundles are a collection of games that can be sold together for a discount price on itch.io, and they can be based on a charitable topic, for example, and like a bundle for Ukraine. Yeah, just look out for them on itch.io or other platforms if you can apply for them. So it's a nice way to share your game and also support a good cause. So have a community following. I guess that's a pretty self-explanatory one. And yeah, like Marie mentioned before, each games are free or donation-based by default. And just stick with this trend, because I think it's good to make your games accessible to the broader audience.
What is also nice is make your game browser playable, because every click on a website is a click too much.
And so these are some possible research directions that we want to go in as regards to itch.io. So what is interesting also about these questions that can be tackled both from a data science and tech perspective and also by humanities. So this is what our program also does. We are interdisciplinary. Marie's from humanities, I'm from tech, and we like to combine these approaches because I think they can improve upon each other and create something very special. So these are some of the questions that we find interesting and that we can discover on further when we build our data set, possibly in the future. If we have time to read them, I'm not sure. Yeah? Another minute. So yeah, do games that rank highly in game jams have higher engagement on itch.io is one of the questions.
Why is horror and dating sims so popular among itch.io users, and does this trend hold up only for consumers but also for game creators?
So are games made by people with game studies background different in some way?
And can we do more research on, into not safe for work content on itch.io, because there is actually also a lot.
Yep, and there is no research on it, but that would be interesting to see if it's as diverse as the other content on itch.io and as inclusive. And yeah, thank you.
That's our bibliography, and thank you for your attention, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this really interesting talk, and for, I somehow imagine already your research question for your master thesis, right? So somehow thinking about that maybe. However, yeah, so thanks a lot. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead, and then we go over there. Okay.
Yeah. First question. So I do not have really a background in games or game studies, but as you said, what caught my ear is that you do not have much of a programming background. So what could also be interesting for industry, because there are many engineers that do not typically have a background in programming. So what tools and what concept are you using? For example, I know Unreal Engine, which supports somehow a block programming, but is there more, or are there any alternative concepts to programming without being a software specialist or engineer?
So what I love to use is RPG Maker. The thing is, it's very limited, but the engine basically does everything for you, and you have to just get into the groove of working with the engine, but you don't have to have any experience with programming. Obviously, some help It helps a little bit when you know a little bit about variables because you can work with them, but you can also completely leave that out. Fun fact, I made a game in RPG Maker for a Fachhochschule here. It's called Campus Adventure. You can play it on their website. And this game was made solely without programming knowledge at all.
Okay, thank you. Then there's a question from the online cloud, and then we go for the next question in the, Andrea, please.
Okay, a question from the online crowd. Lovely talk, ladies. How can we get involved in the game jams?
So there is actually one coming up. They happen a lot, or I think it's the only one in Carinthia actually, at Klagenfurt University, and you can. So you have to apply via itch.io. So if you go on the website itch.io, you can search for game jams, and then you can find the 10th Klagenfurt Game Jam. It's called Clue Jam, and it takes place on the 2nd to 4th of June. So it's actually next weekend, I think.
Yes.
If you want to participate, you can apply or sign up online. That's very important for them to know how much food there's going to be. They take care of everything. You don't have to have a teammate. You don't have to know what programming is. You can just go there, have fun, talk to people, create some games, or just look how it works and have a nice meal and nice talk.
And if this was too quick, maybe for all the persons in the room, they can approach you in the break.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Then you give all the contact details again.
Yes,
Thanks.
please do.
So then I just look at the watch. Maybe a last question.
Yeah, so I have a question. Did you think about using AI bots into your games, or is this approachable into itch.io?
So your question is if we thought about using AI bots in our games development?
Yes,
or
yes.
Okay, so by AI bots you mean like LLM models like ChatGPT, is that correct?
No, I'm meaning about some minions or different bots that go into your game and they behave like a normal player, but instead they are only bots.
Oh, so okay, you mean NPC behavior?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so NPC is a non-playable character, and you can implement them in your games, and you can give them whatever, however intelligence you want. It can be very simple, like goes there and attacks the player, or it can be something more sophisticated and even implement some AI techniques. But we personally dealt more with interactive fiction type of games, so we personally did not implement AI NPC behavior, but it's certainly possible, and there are a lot of tools in the internet to see how it can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much for this interesting talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and with that we are already at the second speaker from today's session. So I want to welcome on stage Neza Strus from Ljubljana. So she has a bachelor degree in financial mathematics and now working in the gaming industry. She's a lead data scientist at Equipa 2. This is a subsidiary of Outfit 7 located in Ljubljana. She's managing there the data science team, and her goal is to foster collaboration and agile work environment to encourage continuous learning. And I think it's perfectly fitting what she says about what is her goal to what just the two master students told us, so Marie and Ksenia, because like it's quite a collaborative environment, the gaming industry, and you need quite a diversity to achieve something, like in many other industries as well. And yeah, and her talk will be also the perfect transition to the session after the lunch break, because she will tell us also how to become a good data scientist with some examples from the gaming industry. So welcome on stage.
Thank you. Can I take this one? Sure. Hi, thank you for this lovely introduction. So, yeah, basically you told everything about me, so I don't need to present myself. So yeah, I work at Outfit 7. I don't know how many of you heard of this company before. We've made a very famous game called My Talking Tom. And since then, you know, we've done a bunch of other successful games. I think we're at 21 billion downloads currently. So we're quite a strong player on this Tamagotchi market. These are the characters that you take care of, like my talking Tom was. So yeah, we did a bunch of other characters, and we are also very strong in runner section. So this is Infinite Runner, where you run with character, avoid obstacles, and collect currency. I started working at Outfit more than 6 years ago. I was fresh out of university. I was super excited to start working at such a successful company, but I was also quite frightened. I remember for the first half of a year, I had a major imposter syndrome, just waiting for someone to be like, we made a mistake, you need to go, you know. But it got better, so if anyone out there is a junior, hold on, you got it. Okay, so in our company, the data science team, our general job description is kind of, we do dashboards, we automate processes, and we drive data-driven decisions. And what this means in reality is we do a lot of A/B testing, we do a lot of update reports, so when app has an update, later on we check if everything is okay, what could be improved, what's performing well, and exploratory analysis. So we just dig into data, try to find something to optimize, and then present. And although tasks are always different, there's always something new, the process behind this is quite similar. And today I kind of want to talk about some of the stuff we as a team learned during these processes, so where we had challenges and basically what we learned. And I sectioned it into kind of 3 pillars. So gathering and analyzing the data, which is the first one, presenting results, and then working on your soft skills. And we can start with the first one, gathering and analyzing the data. So, maybe I should mention why I titled my talk, Why is a Good Data Scientist a Package of Professions? So if you're a product data scientist in a big company, you usually work with a bunch of people. There's product managers, there are game designers, there's quality assurance, developers, and then there are completely like other teams as marketing, legal, and so on. So you have to fit into a different roles with each team and on each step of the process. And gathering and analyzing the data, to me, feels like being a lawyer because you kind of advocate for users. Product manager, except on customer support emails or, I don't know, when players come and play the game live so you can see what they're actually doing, they have no clue how players feel about the game. So they kind of need the data science team to help them with that. So we can see if, you know, which features are engaging, where do users churn, where do they spend a lot of time, if difficulty is too hard, if tutorials, so how you're onboarded on the game, is clear, and how all of this changes by country, by platform, by app version. You know, there's a bunch of stuff. And I really do feel if you're making analysis, so making it from a point of view of users, you're going to do a better analysis than just being, okay, what can I check, and then go through everything. The second one is use different metrics. Here I have an example. So one of the kind of main key performance indicator is retention. I don't know if this is a familiar metric here. So this is just out of 100% of people, players that install, how many return on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 5, blah, 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 and so on. And this is a good metric, but what we added is also average active days for new users. So for example, you could say average retention on day, I don't know, 3 was 25%, but in some ways this is very limited because you don't know if user was there on day 1, on day 2, and day 3, or it was just day 0 and day 3. So this additional metrics just let us know, okay, on day 3 since installed, they on average had 2 active days. So it's just like additional metric for us to better understand users. And another one I have is for engagement. So this is how engaged users are, how long are they playing the game. And the left plot is box plots with test play time. So during the test, what was the average time per user that they spent playing, which is fine. Again, we have minimum, maximum, percentiles, median, average is there. But then what we added is also this percentage where we can more clearly see, okay, so 25% of users will have 50 minutes in the game on average. And this helps game designers and product managers to pace the game better. Because if you just say, yeah, in the duration of 1 month, average user had 40 minutes of playtime, okay, but you know, how can this be more insightful? Okay, then the third one is challenge data analysis. And here I don't mean necessarily if you calculate something, do a plot, and it's like a hockey stick, and you're like, well, obviously something is weird. I mean more that something doesn't go with the prior knowledge that you had, so with the analysis you did, and then you get some weird results that don't really match, or when you put the whole story together, it just, something is a bit off. And again, I have a real-life example here. I will go through it kind of quickly, but if anyone has questions, please find me later. We can discuss this a bit more in depth. So, we had this app, it was called My Talking Tom Friends, and we knew there was quite a lot of potential to improve it. So we did one test regarding this specific feature. We saw how, okay, we can go more extreme. We did a second test. We got some results, and then we were like, okay, let's test this again with some additional tweaks, so we tested a third time. And in the second and the third test, groups A and B were the same. There were other testing groups as well, but the important thing here is that A and A were the same in second and third test, and B and B were the same. And what was a bit off is that retention was similar, right? So we can see here on day 0, I mean on day 1 and 2 is a bit lower, and then it goes up. Of course, the second test was running for longer, but still, the curve kind of matches. Engagement was also similar, but then TTV, this is test time value, so in the duration of the A/B test, how much revenue we expect to get from user, it was completely different. So in the second test, group B, relative difference was 3% higher, and in the second test, it was 1.6% lower. And if we would be just checking, you know, separate test, okay, we got the third one, we got the second one, and the third one, okay, these are our results. It would be good, but we were very kind of aware that what we did in the second test wasn't combining with what we saw now. And we said, okay, let's dig into this a little bit deeper. And what we saw was that we were collecting users differently. So in the second test, we were collecting users for a week, and then we were observing them for 2 months. And in the third test, we started the test, and we kept collecting users in the test. So we didn't stop after a week, but as the test was running, new users kept coming in. And this, of course, has an impact on DAU structure. So in the left one, we can see that all the users kind of age, right? So after a month, all the users will be about a month old, while in the third test, because we kept collecting new users, there's a bigger portion of users with day 0, day 1, day 2, and then smaller with day 7, right? And if I again go back to TTV, before when I was telling you this relative difference, it was average per user, 3% higher and 1.5% lower. But if we check per day, we can see that it actually does match. So this TTV per day kind of looks like retention. So on day 1 and 2 is lower, and then it goes up, right? So what actually happened is that because in the third test, we had many more users with day 1 and 2, where the TTV is negative, this overall impacted the whole, all the metrics done per user, right? So if you can, no, sorry. Does it work? Yeah. So here you can see that day 0 and day 0, they have the similar values, and they are the same as, Olivia, this doesn't work. They are negative here. And once you combine everything, it just has an impact on overall average. So be mindful about collection of users, because it can change the results you get. So neither one is really wrong. You can do like collection for a week or 2 or whatever, and then observing, or you can collect them throughout. You just have to be careful that your metrics, so per user, are going to look completely different. Okay. The next one is presenting results. So here, your end users are no longer players, but the people you're presenting your reports to. And I think this one is very important, because you can do the best analysis ever, come up with huge insights, and then you present to people and nobody follows, nobody understands what you said, they don't listen, you haven't really done anything, right? So you need to kind of work on that skill of presenting results so that it's clear and yeah, people can follow. And here I have a few points as well. The first one, I think, it's ask why a lot, and not like why in a douchebag kind of way. It's just, why are we doing this? You know, what problems are you trying to solve? Because if you understand the people, what person on the other side wants to achieve, you can use that and do the analysis better. The second one is choose an appropriate visual display. So here again, the journey in our company was we were drawing distributions, but this was a bit much for some product managers. Sometimes they just want to, you know, here it's better or it's worse or it's like 5% better. So the distribution was too much. And what we did was box plots, so just drawing distribution in a box plot kind of way. But then again, people were jumping into wrong conclusions, especially, it's not on this plot, but for example, if the average, so the dot, was, for example, higher in one of the testing group, but it wasn't significant, you know, product managers would say, but it is better, you know. It doesn't matter that it's not significant. Or even sometimes, if it is significant, doesn't mean that the confidence interval, you know, is legit. So what we added is also bootstrap % difference in ads metrics. So we can always say, okay, look, it's not significant, or it is significant, but the confidence interval is too wide. If we switch to that group, we most likely won't see this on the, you know, real life data. So yeah, this was clear plots. And then eliminate clutter. I remember when I joined, I have a screenshot. So this was my reports in the beginning. I put everything I did, I just put in the report, and then I realized people are not so passionate about watching plots on the meeting. So what we came up with was that we do executive summary, which is just answering the problem or concern or task or whatever was done, and executive plots. And then everything else is like in the expandables below, so when people on the meeting ask, you can still show them the plot and explain, but really try to focus on just shorten it, make it clear, and just, yeah, and in that way focus attention where you want it. Because if you go through everything, people will just, you know, it will be too much. The next one is think like a designer. This one is pretty basic, but I've noticed a lot of juniors does that when they join a company. So one is not starting with 0 on the y-axis. We call this a marketing plot because, you know, the drops or the highs look that much bigger than they actually are. And then the other one is also kind of when do absolute numbers make sense. Sometimes it's better to put them in relative terms, especially if you're working on a sample, because we have so many users that we're almost never working on actual, like 100% sample size. We do everything on 1%. And then absolute numbers aren't really that, you know, useful. So it's better to then just say, okay, instead of, I don't know, 6,000 users watched at least one video, you say 25% of daily active users watched at least one video. In some cases, this is more informative. Sometimes, of course, you need absolute numbers as well. And then, yeah, whether to use just average line or do distributions or box plots. As we know, average is easy to manipulate. You need just a few outliers, and then it can mess up with your data. If we would be looking on the plot to the left, we would say, so this is gold coins spent per day since install. And we would say, oh, yeah, on day 0, they spend the most, and then this drops a little bit. But if you do distribution, so this line is actually the median. So 50% of users, you actually see that on day 0, it is the lowest. But because it is day 0, a lot of users come in, and then we have a bunch of hackers and different users. So the average is, you know, there are a bunch of outliers, so it's higher than it should be. So it makes sense to check the distribution, sometimes more than just average number. 5 minutes, okay. And then another one, again, screenshot from our dashboard, use the same colors. We had a bunch of problems because here it was, yeah, so continue run, the first one, Instant Gadget, had the same color, but then for this free box, it was different, and then it was like panic in the company. And it's just colors. And the last two that I think are kind of the most important one is tell a story. So before I showed you all the plots I did in the report, and in the meetings, I went through all of them. So people just stop listening, they, churn in their mind. The focus is not there at all. So really try to tell a story with your plots and with your analysis. So there was a problem with this, we changed that, this had effect on this, and then, to keep people engaged. And the last one, I think this is what makes the difference between like juniors and lower levels to then more mid and high levels is when you do analysis, always have an idea or suggestion or something. So now what? What do? We saw this. This is where the numbers are at. What should we do? If you just do the analysis and go through everything, cool. But I think like what brings you to the next level is really have this now what action point. Not necessarily that they will implement it, but it's still where you want to be. Okay, and then last one is working on your soft skills. And for this one, I think a lot of people just like, roll their eyes. But I think soft skills are actually as important as hard skills, because if it's not natural to you, it takes time and effort to learn them, like it takes time and effort to learn statistics, right? And in some cases, like this hard skills or technology will change, but your soft skills can't really go away. You have them, and they just enrich your work experience. Now we know with ChatGPT and everything, some technical skills maybe won't even be needed. But the soft skills is something you have, and it's a great tool. And I think like the hard skills will get you the job interview, but soft skills will get you the job and the promotion. And here I have a few tips as well. So one is be involved in product. So this is just to know what's going on, not to be like a service for product managers, but it's more of a collaboration. And then create a good hypothesis. This is for A/B testing. Sometimes people will come up to us and say, oh, let's test this, and then we say why. And they are not just, we want to know. And we say, okay, no, we're not doing that. We need a good hypothesis, so if we change this, where the impact is going to be, and then when we see this impact, what are we going to do? Because you can have a bunch of ideas, but if you don't know how you will use them, it doesn't really make sense. So create a good hypothesis and create action plan, kind of go hand in hand. And another one, set expectation beforehand. I think this one is kind of funny, but when you talk with people like on the coffee break, they say, yeah, if we do this A/B test, retention will go up 5%, right? And then they're on the meeting, if you don't set the expectation beforehand, and they see retention drop for 10%, and they're like, oh yeah, because, this makes total sense because this and this happened. So people, when they see something, they start rationalizing it. And then it's just, I think it's more messy. I think it's important to set expectation beforehand because everybody can kind of interpret the plot in their own way. Next one is communicate openly. This one is kind of be involved in product, and this, I think communicate openly is because if you want to challenge something, if you're on a good terms with the team, it's much easier to say, why are we doing this? I think this doesn't make sense because this and that. And it won't come across as you being an asshole to that person because you have this communication and kind of relationship. It will be like, oh, okay, he's challenging me because he knows this and I don't know that, So I think communication is really important. And sometimes, when somebody joins and then goes and asks developer, can you explain me that sometimes they can be really annoyed, like, oh, again, I have to deal with this. But if you have this communication, attitude and everything, people will be like, more happily to help you, I guess. How are we with time? Good? 1 minute, okay, perfect. So the next one is accept everyone has different information. Here for product managers, they're more in the managerial circle, so they know far more in advance what's going to happen that other teams don't. Developers know something, art knows something. There are limitations in every department, so, bugs will happen, errors will happen, we're human, so I don't think in a big team, if something goes wrong, it's one person's fault ever. It's the team, and we shouldn't even focus on who did something wrong, but why and how can we prevent that in the future. I think this is more important. And then the last one, which I struggle with the most, so pushing back, because there are so many requests and not a lot of data scientists in our company for everything they want to do, that sometimes I mean, in one point you have to learn to push back, and it can be really difficult because people take their ideas and suggestions very personally. So when you say, this doesn't really make sense, or this is not high on prioritization list, you know, feelings can get hurt. So it takes some skill how to communicate this properly without people being kind of sad about it. Okay, I think I rushed through everything. Hope it was easy to follow. I think, yeah, this concludes my talk. If you have any questions, ask now or later if you don't want to do it publicly. And yeah, this is everything from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, I go here. Okay. Thank you very much for this nice talk and for this overview. Also, why we need a lot of professions as a data scientist as well. Any questions from the audience? Or from online? Okay, there's an online question. We start with online.
A great online crowd this year. Thanks a lot. Is there a difference on how you analyze the data of a children's game? For example, as the user making a purchase, downloading the game, as the player is not the payer.
What was the second part? Sorry, I didn't get it.
The second part was, just an example, the user making the purchase or downloading the game is not the player, but just the payer. So is there a difference in analysis?
Okay, so because we make apps for kids, we are under very strict regulating laws. So all the data is kind of hashed. We don't have any personal information. And each year, you know, those laws get kind of stricter and stricter. But it's because we are flagged as kids game, we kind of consider everyone the same, and everything is very protected, especially with this GDPR and everything that happened in the recent years. But no, there's not really that much of a difference. Also, in our games, we're more focused on ads, because it's not in-app purchase-driven games. So we don't really, we don't make any differences, because the segment of in-app purchases is too small for us to be worth investing time into that.
Okay. Any other question up there? Yeah, thanks. Meanwhile, maybe a comment. I just wanted to say, I totally feel you when you showed this, I don't know, millions from my side of plots like that you want to show that all your work. That I had the same 15 years ago when I started, like, I have to show all my work, so I totally understand.
And then you realize people don't want to see them.
They don't care.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. I want to ask you, because I was working as a game developer before, and as I remember, iOS, I mean Apple Store, start to share their information less than before. So it was an obstacle for companies, game companies, to detect such kind of analysis. So what were your approach after this kind of, how can I say, less information from their side?
Yeah, we don't really bother that much with information we get from the stores, because our department is really focused to get information from what users are doing in the game. You know, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're checking how the funnels look like. So from the moment they come into the app, where do they churn? Where do they sign off and stop playing? And then we check, okay, how can we improve that? Is there some pain point? Or, for example, what we are testing was how often do they see ads? Because we don't want to ruin user experience, but on the other hand, you kind of want to optimize revenue. So basically, majority of stuff we do in our department is based on how users play the game. And the data from the store doesn't really matter, because we don't get none. I think it's like country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other question? Another from the online crowd, yes.
Both the game and data science worlds are very male-dominated. How do you think that the advice in your talk could be targeted in women professionals?
Yeah, that's a good question. But maybe just to share, at our companies in the data science team, we have 4 leading positions, and on all 4 leading positions there are women. So in our company, I also think the ratio between genders is quite fairly divided. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also like a, how would I not get too serious? Like it's a society, how do we, yeah, how do we, you know, what do we say to little girls and little boys? Because girls are usually, oh, you're cute, and boys are, you're smart. So I think we have to change this mentality and start from little kids and being like, you know, focus on better things than just you're good looking.
Nothing more to add. Thanks a lot. Yeah, with that, that's a perfect finish, not for the whole section, but just for these two technical vision talks. Thank you. The speakers, I will, Nabi, you should come back on stage because you get a present, right? So all the speakers back on stage, please. There you are. Thank you very much. And now to the last thing before we start our coffee, our lunch break, right? It's my pleasure to welcome on stage the students from the two schools that we're working with in the Girls in Data Science initiative. But before the students are here, I would like to thank especially Anita and Ksenia. Where's Ksenia? There. Please stand up because these are the two driving the initiative for Girls in Data Science. So, yeah, please, all the students come on stage because actually they want to open their exhibition. And it's not me who would tell you what they are exhibit to you and what they learned in the Girls in Data Science initiative, but the students will tell this on their own. So please, all on stage. Gibt es schon das Mikrofon? Ja? Okay. Stellt euch dahin, da? Ja. Ganz gut, ja. Ja, wunderbar. Hallo. Yeah, I think we fit. Great, so assume.
Okay, I think I'm gonna start. So my name is Neza Strus. I'm the art teacher of the 3B class from St. Martin's High School in Villach. And it's the second time that we have been taking part with our school in the Women Data Science Conference with an exhibition. So thank you very much to invite us again this year. I'm very proud that we can be here. And this year we were searching for a connection between biology, mathematics and art. And for that we were working together with our two colleagues, Lukas Hutter and Manuel Czudnik in the back, our two biology teachers. And yeah, what we did finally in the semester, 3 of our students, Vita and Annika and Josefina, are going to tell you now. Thank you very much.
Hi. So the project we're presenting today took place as part of Women in Data Science, and they also gave us the opportunity to show our works today. We had a workshop in our art and biology lesson with our professors Ms. Pasterk and Mr. Czudnik, also Professor Hutter, who programmed a website that helped us design and inspire our works. Our project is all about fractals in nature, and you'll be able to see how we interpreted that in our works later. Now my classmate Anita is going to talk a bit about the workshop in more detail.
Thank you, Vita. And today, before the project, in general, we had a workshop about fractals in nature, and in this workshop we discussed what fractals are in general, and then we started to draw them. And at the end of the workshop, our teacher, Professor Lucas Hutter, showed us a webpage. He especially created this webpage for the workshop, and on this page, which is called Fractals Playground, we were able to create fractals ourselves. We had to type in a code, and then we could see how fractals grow and become more or less beautiful. You can see our results in the exhibition. And before the workshop ended, the co-ambassador from Women in Data Science, Anita Kloss-Brandstätter, came to us and talked about the whole project and that they want to get more girls into technical job. Now Josefina is going to talk about some of our projects.
Thank you, Annika. I'm going to talk about some projects in more detail. At first, the lung. In a group of 4, the girls Alexandra, Svea, Katarina and Cosma made a really unique art piece which is half painted and half made of wire. The girls are all very interested in biology, so they tried finding fractals in the human body. They found what they were looking for when they focused more closely onto the lungs, and it immediately captured their imagination. Now they are on one hand great artists and on the other hand experts of the lung. Next, I'm going to talk about Trisha and Anna's project, which is called Reality and Fantasy. Reality and fantasy can be easily differentiated from each other. But as you can see in their picture, fractals appear in both. When they created their masterpiece, those talented girls immediately thought of dandelions. Why? Because of their beauty. But they seem tiny when you compare them with their universe. Reality and imagination was created by painting dandelions in space. I love this idea because it was so creative. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about my own project, which I made with Lieselotte, Yara, and Vita. We dedicated our project to the river pearl shell because this is one of the few types of shells that still exist in Austria. But sadly, since the river pearl shell needs very clean waters, the stocks of the species have decreased massively, dramatically due to the introduction of nutrients, pesticides, and sediments. Despite efforts to stop this, climate overheating is now threatening to further weaken the species massively. To remind and make people aware of this, Vita, Yara, Lieselotte, and I made this fractal shell so that we can fight climate change and prevent our river pearl shell from extinction. Next to our picture in the exhibition, we have a little donation box where you can donate to a nature organization from Austria to save this shell. Thank you for your attention.
These are just some examples. You can exhibit all the real ones back there where you have coffee and lunch afterwards, right? Okay. Then we hand over.
Yeah, thank you. Is this,
yeah, okay. Can you expose it?
Thank you very much. We are students and professors, also my colleague is here, from CHS Villach. It's a school, a high school for art and design. And not the whole class is here because the others are preparing for the performance after the next break. We're responsible for the art exhibition in the dark room. It's the room 4. I don't know if you have seen it. It's about the manipulation of perception. It's about eye iris recognition. It's about the observation we are all confronted with all the time. And what you can see are the eye irises from the students, but they are not natural, they are artificial. They are artificially symmetric, and because they are mirrored, they are not real. They seem like an artificial intervention. Yes, and what questions do this concern? The photo installation deals with the manipulation of perception, eyes as an opening to the outside but also to the inside, eye iris recognition, the constant observation we are exposed to, and the border between reality and virtuality. And also the performance will deal with it, but I will introduce it after the break. Through the eyes we can see the person behind it, but the eye iris recognition provides information about the identity. Also in data science you use maybe information through the eyes, through how many people can see, or playing a game, or I don't know. But also in medical things, the outward appearance of the eyes, about the state of health, for example. The eyes, it is said, are the windows to the soul also. We can look deep into someone if they allow it, or just stay on the surface. Is it reality that is reflected in our eyes? Or is it just an illusion? Where is the line between reality and fiction? And these are the questions we were dealing with. And so get inspired by this photo installation in Darkroom 4. Thank you.
So, thank you very much for this introduction. So I invite all of you not only to go to the lunch break and visit there, the exhibition, and there are also QR codes for this fractal playground. You can try it out. Please also go to the Hörsaal 4, so it's just at the beginning, if you just next to the registration. Go there and visit the darkroom installation of the eye iris experiments. It is really cool to see that. Yeah. Go there, have fun there, and thank you very much, all of you. Just stay here until we go to the break. I just make some final announcements. What else? Yes, I just friendly reminder for all of you, make pictures also from the art exhibition. It's okay. And share it on Facebook, share it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, however you want to. And with that, yes, go and have lunch. See you back at 2 p.m. here in the room. Thank you very much.